bringing you inside the USL Championship and League One.
Segmer's got there, Marquinhos! He's been knocking on the door! He knocks it down!
Diving into all the biggest stories and top headlines.
You are ripping and roaring today.
This is USL All Access.
It's almost impossible to recreate that level of magic.
With Mike Watts and Devon Kerr on SiriusXM FC.
Welcome, everyone, to a new edition of USL All Access. Happy Tuesday evening. We've got a Jaeger Cup weekend in review. We've got a big set of national TV games coming up this weekend and a long-awaited return. We never wait that long, but Ben Pirmann, Charleston Battery head coach, joins us. As we all know, Devin, it's his third season at the helm of that magnificent club. So much excitement around what the Battery have been up to. We're going to chat with him about everything. Mike Watts, Devon Kerr, Emmett McConnell. Devin, it is vital for me to say we are not going to ramble in this open.
Yeah, good for you. What jersey are you wearing?
I'm wearing the Texas Topaz Blue Dallas jersey. Things are about to get super real with Atletico Dallas playing at the Cotton Bowl. So you know they already hooked it up.
Listen, I'm not sure if I've been more all in with excitement, anticipation on a club than everything that I've seen put together for Atletico Dallas. Playing at the Cotton Bowl, the colors, the team video release. There's the Wolf and Snake story. I urge you, because I don't want to do it disjustice, I urge you to go to their website and look at it, go to their socials. It is awesome, man. The way that they intertwine both English and Spanish, their branding, I'm here for it. That's not favoritism. That's called common sense. And whomever is running that team over there, we know a couple of names, but ops on the backside, we don't know. They're doing an incredible job. I like everything about them so far.
In just 2 short years, we look forward to asking why they're bottom of the Western Conference. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, my God, dude. That's messed up.
Because expansion is hard. Rhode Island.
Michael, could be one table and it could be pro-rel. You don't know the answer to that.
Hot dog, 2027 Atletico Dallas coming in. All right. Unlike the Charleston Volvo jerseys that look like I am, in fact, a Volvo, which is still, that is show canon. This fine fitting jersey. Yeah, let's chat about Charleston here for a moment. Handful of signings. Guys, we're entering the summer window. So you look at your team and you go, we're a midfielder shy. We're low on numbers here. We dealt with some injuries here. This is where you're going to fix it to have a chance to get it done at the end of the year. Now, once the window closes, can you go try and figure out the loan market? Of course you can. And we've seen teams do that brilliantly, not the least of which Rhode Island did it last year. We saw Colorado Springs take advantage of it. So far from done. But we're seeing the trickling acquisitions come in. Jeremy Kelly goes to Charleston, was with Ben Pirmann in Memphis. He's at Crawley Town most recently over in England. Dev, he's a familiar guy, and we're going to chat with Ben about it a little bit later. But, Ben didn't need to watch that much tape to know what Jeremy Kelly's going to bring.
Yeah, and just so everybody understands, it's a pre-recorded interview, so we can give you
we know
what he says. We can give you some spoilers, but one of the biggest things that I talked about after the 23 final, so we're going back a season and a half, they lose to Phoenix. That team struggled getting through the game because they just didn't really have any depth. That was the key piece for the Charleston Battery. Lee Cohen, Rob Salvatore in the front office, and Ben Pirmann, they said, we need to get deeper. The Jeremy Kelly acquisition is just a continuing trend for this group, Mike. That is not just about quality of player and an extra body for selection. It's about the versatility within that group as well. So if you take a guy like Nate Dos Santos, right? Pittsburgh, outside back, one of the back three. Well, now all of a sudden, Charleston Battery can use him as a center back position. They've had to rotate him in emergency situations on the right, and he can play left back. Chris Allen, either one of the sixes, working within the midfield. If you really need a body, yes, you can push him up higher, but you can also drop him onto the back line. Husu Landry, same type of conversation. So they're getting guys, Mike, that aren't just quality of player, and you say, okay, well, he can play on the wing. Real quick, Jeremy Kelly becomes in a conversation positionally for 2, possibly even 3 positions, depending on opponent and what congestion looks like. That's the biggest pickup for me here, is the depth that the player himself provides at multiple locations on the field.
Yeah, and for a club that typically doesn't have huge numbers. I mean, I think a lot of people saw the comments from Pep Guardiola. Must be nice to say we don't need 28 or 29 guys, field players available to us in the first team, because he doesn't want to make them sad to not play. In Charleston, you pretty much have to play. This should alleviate some of the minute strain. Not the only Kelly coming in. Stephen Kelly going out to Orange County, has been around English, Scottish football. Not an unfamiliar name within that context. It is a continuation of what's been a pretty heavy Scotland to Orange County pipeline, which I never thought I'd say out loud.
And yet, for some reason, the conversation only gets deeper since the relationship was established. Is it 2019 now?
Sure.
2019. Two big things for me with Stephen Kelly. Number one, the understanding of what type of player he is bringing to that midfield. A guy that certainly can play the 6, but as his career has gone on, it's kind of that hybrid 8 that pushes the game a little bit higher, Mike. He can stick goals in the back of the net. Had scored, I believe it was 9 goal contributions in 30 matches. And that's kind of, that conversation has started to push itself. It got me to thinking about Orange County and some of their chance creation and what that kind of stigma was on teams around the league. Orange County, one of just 5 teams that don't have a goal scorer in the top 20. Well, if they don't have a goal scorer, why am I then talking about a midfielder? And the reason I bring this full circle is the other 4 teams, so 5 total, they don't really have that bite within the midfield that gives you that extra step. They've got attacking options up high, even playmaking 10s. And then there's kind of that like deep lying 6 where they can facilitate and defensively lock things down. But that 30, 40-yard stretch, that can be at times where you want guys in the link-up play. Orange County doesn't really have that. This gives them that opportunity. I'd be curious if you can see the trend, by the way, when I talk about how they don't have that consistent stretch within the midfield. The other 4, the second I say it, you're going to go, okay, yeah, that's right. Pittsburgh Riverhounds. Think about their personnel. Bradley Sample, Danny Griffin, Jackson Walty. Those are 6s. Griffin can give you a 6-8, but Griffin's not going to move you into the final third consistently. These guys control, and they control down underneath. Rhode Island, same exact conversation. Even with Maxi Rodriguez coming in, they haven't really gotten that break point underneath. They've got them up high, and they've got guys down underneath, but they don't have that stepping stone. Sacramento, Lexington, Orange County. Sacramento is really the only one that I would say that they do have those pieces, but with the amount of rotation and injuries they have, Neil Collins and co. haven't really put it all together. Lexington is the same thing, though. Yep. Deep-lying midfielders. This is that type of player who's going to not only get them over, they're going to buck that trend of space coverage and ground coverage within the midfield of helping into the final third. Your hope is what it does for the guys in front of him to unlock more goals going forward.
All right. Time is not our friend because we don't ramble on this show. Let's chat about the Morrises. Jake, contract extension, wing back, outside back at Louisville. Sees him tied to the club minimum 2027, option for 2028. Dev, I was enamored listening to you and Danny Cruz talk about the necessity of Jake Morris to their attack.
Yeah, we broke it down prior to the Rhode Island game, and I'm very quick to point out where I see something, but also make sure that I'm not kind of throwing darts. And I just said, I see a little over-presumptuous, if you will, that you always have to go to the right. And I brought up some data. I talked about games, and he said, listen, man, you're spot on. What's the consistent thing that hasn't been there? We haven't had Jake Morris. Danny Cruz, big on the idea that they need the balance, specifically Jake Morris on the other side. And that's not a knock at Amadou Dia or Aiden McFadden and what those options provide. Jake Morris at this point in time is just the overall preferred number 1 selection. If you remember early last season, when he was healthy, they were absolutely flying and annihilating that left-hand side of their attack. And so they've struggled a little bit with it, but now he's back. And certainly you would think that he's here to stay long-term.
Yep. All right, elsewhere, speaking of Morris, it's Ben Morris at Detroit. Terrible news for him, out for the remainder of the season with an ACL tear. The numbers were not necessarily where they were a season ago, and yet critical piece for them in terms of stretching back lines and playing in that 9. It's a loss for them for sure.
Understands the system. Darren Smith is about goals. Ben is more about the understanding of what is needed of him, work rate. the link-up play, stuff like that. They're attacking categories. He's one of those guys that comes up in that top 4, top 5 region. So he's going to be a loss. They're struggling for goals already. It just makes it a little bit thinner now.
Yep. All right. Couple other news headlines around the USL Championship. New Mexico. Congrats to them. A fun game against FC Juarez. 8,000 fans at the Lab. It's Thomas Among who scores the winner against the Liga MX side 1-0. Elsewhere, Oakland. This is a big deal for the club, but now they have to go back it up. The Roots and the Soul will move into the former Raiders headquarters in Oakland. It is adjacent to the Oakland airport. It's been home to training camps or week of match day camps for Chivas and Real Sociedad and Sevilla and the Mexican national team. It's theirs now. That's great. You still have to properly handle your business in terms of bringing in players that will continue to elevate alongside the infrastructure that you've gained. Dev, before we go to break, Milan Olaski came into the championship and just blew things out in Orange County. He's back in Southern California, and I don't think he should ever leave.
Oh, my God. When they got him on loan from their sister club, you kind of looked around and went, and he came over from Nordstrand, by the way, from everybody forgets when he left Orange County. Yeah. So that's their sister club, and they've done a really good job of cultivating talent early on. But when he came in, I thought, I really hope he doesn't get stuck again. Fortunately for him, they picked up injuries, and they lacked form overall in the 9. So he got his opportunity, and oh my God, has he been incredible. Just set the MLS record for most goals in a 12, well, not most goals, for the quickest 4 goals in MLS history. It was a 12-minute stretch. It's not just that. He's the 20th player in MLS history to score 4 goals in a single match. Friendly reminder, by the way, that he dropped 22 back in 22 with Orange County, all from the open run of play. That's right. Not a single set piece, not a penalty, all of those in the actual run of play. And he had 8 from outside the box. It tied a record set by Manu Ledesma and FC Cincinnati in 2018. Now 9 goals in 13 matches, 175 minutes. Player of the match day and up for player of the month. I submitted my vote today. I actually get one. God forbid it took me that long to get one for USL. And damn, I say that he deserves it. Woo! We do not ramble.
I got my vote from NWSL for player of the month and deleted the email because I am not qualified to vote on these things. All right. When we come back, Jaeger Cup, match day 3, very few spots solidified, a ton up for grabs in the 4th and final match day at the end of the month. We're going to walk you through all the important results when we come back.
Let's get back to USL All Access on SiriusXM FC with Mike Watts and Devon Kerr.
We're back on USL All Access on this Tuesday night. If you missed the weekend, regular season's out. Jaeger Cup is so in. Our shot at glory continues to come with no product. Let's chat about the games coming up. Match day 4 is going to be interesting for about 15 teams is how this works out. And that's the way it is in every competition. But we're going to go group by group here and try and analyze how match day 3 affects what moves forward. Starting group 1, Vegas win their final game. They are the only one in that group who are done against Spokane 2-0. So they're at 9 points. Sacramento blew it against Orange County, who are out of contention to advance and played a really young team. Monterey Bay lost to Oakland, who are out of contention to advance out of the group. So in July, Sacramento and Monterey Bay both need a regulation win to have a chance. Sac head-to-head over Las Vegas. Regulation win against Spokane, they're in. Monterey Bay would have to beat Alta, likely soundly, to move on. Wow. What are we doing?
That's all you got? I got more for you, baby. This is where things get a little bit dicey for me. Vegas is out. I know that's presumptuous on my end, but listen, if Sac and Monterey can't get a result, what are we doing here, right?
Yeah, but it's not a draw with a shootout. They need to win.
That's what I'm saying. They need an outright win. So what's interesting to me is the fact that the whole idea that the first tiebreaker in this group is all about head-to-head, right? And the fact that you could really have 3 teams that end up for a tiebreaker and Sac and Monterey didn't play each other.
Right.
I love that. Which brings us to goals. You need goals, baby. And Zach, they can't score right now. Zach has played 18 games this year. Only 6 times have they scored 2 or more goals. You need goals. That's where we're going. Because friendly reminder, on the backside of this, we're talking about group winners. Also, the opportunity for the next 2 best after the fact to get a wild card. And Mike, what is the wild card tiebreaker? We don't ramble. Goal scored. Zach better light it up, man. They better take every advantage to continue this on and get that attack going. Now's the time. Let's go.
All right. Group 2, San Antonio. They pick up their 3rd win in 3. They beat Omaha 1-0. Jake LaCava, the winner. But only 4 goals scored, which does not help them in tiebreakers should they not win their group. 6 of 18 that played in that game for San Antonio or available for that game are SAFC Pro Academy products, which big thumbs up. New Mexico still unbeaten. They got the extra point in the shootout against Colorado Springs. They moved to 6, which means high noon is San Antonio hosting New Mexico, where New Mexico needs to win in regulation to jump San Antonio on head-to-head. It's July 26th.
I'm also a little bit saddened by the idea, while I respect your Phoenix comments, that given how well they've played and one of the most consistent in the league, you didn't give them a shout here for a wild card berth, man. You didn't see that coming? That if New Mexico loses and Phoenix wins and goes to 8 points, Phoenix has the 2nd most goals in the tournament right now, trailing Rhode Island. That's a whole nother conversation.
8's going to be, I highly doubt 8's enough.
Well, that's where I was going here, is that the one problem you're going to run into is there are currently 12 teams sitting on 8 points or can eclipse 8 points by the end of match day 4. That's going to be the big issue. But I think Phoenix, the fact that they've been able to light it up with goals, Phoenix could win their last game 1-0 and still have the 2nd most goals in the tournament. Rhode Island, by the way, on 9 goals in 3 games, and they've only got, I wrote it down, 13 and 14 in league play. Yeah, figure that one out.
And they still have Hartford to go. All right, Group 3, Indy, Birmingham both had a chance to win the group outright if they won the game, but of course they didn't. The shootout point goes to Indy. 9,000 at the mic for the game. Preston 90 plus 4 equalizer for Birmingham. Otherwise, Indy's through. Yikes. Damas missed the winning penalty in the end. Indy finished with Tulsa at home. That is not an easy road.
No, but I wouldn't exactly say that for Birmingham. They have a great opportunity here. And the reason I say that is Forward Madison concedes, but they don't concede in droves. They're actually quite similar to the Charleston Battery, conceded in 14 of 16 matches. They're almost always going to let a goal up, but they can tickle the nylon a little bit. Not a lot, but they kind of do just enough to get by, and especially in cup competition. For a Birmingham Legion team, Mike, that very similarly to SAC hasn't really found the right combinations. I was looking at the numbers over the past 4-game stretch heading into this CBS Sports Network game. They're either really good attacking-wise and really good defensively, but the very next game it flip-flops. I don't think you're going to get a better chance against a quote-unquote lower division opponent. However, the numbers don't necessarily line up there.
Yeah. All right, let's go to Group 4. That's in the Northeast. Rhode Island, they're a cup team now, right? 4-1 win at home against Hearts of Pine. Albert Dequa hat trick. Hartford fumbled the bag at home against Detroit. Matt Sheldon gets his brace in the 90th minute. Detroit do grab the shootout point, but eliminated from the group regardless. So it'll come down to El Clamico a week after we have it on CBS. July 26th. Hartford through with a regulation win. Rhode Island through with a win or a draw.
I'm sorry. El Clamico is just the best. That's the greatest name we've ever come up with, dude. You nailed it, but
I didn't come up with it. This is fans.
It's fans, yeah. I'm getting hit up on Twitter as to not listen to other supporters on fake places to go when we go up in Rhode Island in July, because I have to go to certain establishments for food. I mean, It's a food-driven society. It's a food-driven rivalry, and apparently there's goals. Who knew? El Clamico twice. I'm here for it. That's all I'm giving you here, buddy.
All right, Group 5. Loudon led for 10 minutes in the second half. They didn't put Charlotte away. They're 27 minutes from winning the group outright with a regulation win, but they didn't. So they go to 8 points. Loudon finish against North Carolina July 25th, the day before most teams play. They're through on points if they get a shootout win or a win. If they don't, Charlotte finishes with Richmond at home, win, and Loudon regulation loss. They could get through. Louisville's still alive. Loudon has to lose in regulation. Then they have to go win at Lexington July 26th after they got a win over North Carolina, the rescheduled game on Sunday where Jansen Wilson scored the winner.
Stay with
Anything
me
to add?
Yeah, stay with me on this one. Loudon could certainly lose to North Carolina. Yep. Louisville could certainly lose to Lexington. It's very possible given that rivalry. I don't believe it, but it's possible. Is there any chance in your mind that Charlotte is going to back their way into the number one overall position? I'll stop you right there. The answer is no. While I would like to see it happen, I wanted to figure out how to phrase this. They played 23 games against Richmond in their organization's history. That's the most against any competitor of all time. Now, while they've got the brunt of it, since going into League One, it's a dead heat, man. It's a dead heat. It's 4-4-3. Out of the 11 games, 10 of the 11 have been decided by 1 goal or less. There's 6 shutouts. There ain't no chance that they're 1 away from Richmond in a cup competition match. You say Rhode Island is a cup team. Richmond will and for always be one of the OGs when it comes to cup football, my friend.
They certainly are. And then finishing our Jaeger Cup review from Group 6, Greenville, vital win, 2-0 over Miami, but not in the clear because they lost to South Georgia Tormenta in April. So Miami's not dead yet, but they need drop points on Friday because July 4th is key. Naples hosts Tampa Bay. The
Boom.
Rowdies win in regulation. They
Get in
control
there.
the group.
Give it to me.
They have to finish in Charleston against a Battery team that's already eliminated July 26th. Naples win in regulation on Friday. They finish with Greenville and can play the group outright, can win it July 26th. All of which still leaves Miami alive when they play South Georgia Tormenta at home. Let's talk next week, right?
I feel it's in the cards for the Rowdies. I'm saying it. Stevie Coleman's first win was in the Open Cup against FC Naples. Reminder, penalties, 127 penalties later. They won 9-8. This is setting up, man. There ain't no chance they're winning against the Battery. However, they're going to put themselves in contention.
The wild card, for what it's worth, to go through, again, it's points, then goals scored. It's Hartford on 7, Birmingham on 7. Hartford has scored 7, Birmingham has scored 6. Then you get New Mexico, SAC, Monterey Bay, Charlotte, all on 6 points. New Mexico leads the way on goals. Worth noting, 3 points or less, you're gonzo. Charlotte, and make that Charleston, Charleston, North Carolina, Pittsburgh, Orange County, out.
What? This is Jaeger Cup. Can you imagine when this is Pro Rel?
So drunk.
I can't wait.
All right, when we come back, it's going to be Charleston Battery head coach, notably in his 3rd season. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Don't allow Wikipedia to mislead you. Ben
or social
Pirmann.
Media.
Ben is with us on the other side of the break here on USL All Access.
Giving insight to all the biggest moments in Championship and League One. This is USL All Access on SiriusXM FC with Mike Watts and Devon Kerr.
Welcome back, everyone. It's USL All Access on this Tuesday night. Miss a part of the show. It's available on the SiriusXM app or on the USL YouTube page. As promised earlier in the show, one of our favorite guests is making a return trip. He's working on his 5-timer jacket at this point. 2022 Coach of the Year. That was in Memphis. Then he took over the Battery in 2023. It's his 3rd season at the helm. Get used to seeing Ben Pirmann in the Battery on TV. They're on Wednesday night at Birmingham on CBS Sports Network, 8 p.m. And then again on Sunday, July 6th, against North Carolina at Patriots Point, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Ben Pirmann joins the show. Ben, welcome back, man. I can't believe you're doing this again.
Thanks for having me. Anytime.
It's definitely your loss, but our pleasure. Look, obviously enviable position within the table. You're 3 points off the top with a game in hand. You've got 2 big games this week. As you go through a season like this, like a year ago, how much are you looking at the standings? How much are you sort of paying attention to title races as opposed to the task at hand? And knowing you, I think I know the answer.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think everybody looks at it. We're all, on FOTMob and on the websites looking and seeing the details. whether I'll say this, it's easier to go watch the other 10, 11 games in the league's highlights after a win versus a loss. You hate everybody else and you don't want to deal with soccer. And look, you mentioned it. We're in our third season with, Rob Salvatore, our chairman, and Lee Cohen, for me, the best in the business, our president and leader, and, myself and the staff and the players. We're in our third season of this, and we've invested more, whether that's resources or time or position specific and recruitment processes. And we believe we have a very strong team. Last year, second overall in the league, which is a tremendous feat in Louisville, the deserved, Players Shield champions and bopped it pretty good. And then, we made our third final in 2 years last year, hosting the Eastern Conference and fell short there. So, this year we've put all our focus in just every single week playing the best that we possibly can. We believe we have a strong team. We believe that we have a deep team. We've obviously been loaded with injuries like a lot of teams do. And we're right at that halfway point in the season. So we're right there. I think you mentioned we're 3 points out from Louisville for first, but there's a ton of really good teams right on our heels as well. So we just stick to our processes, one game at a time, one focus at a time. We had a great session today, another good session tomorrow, and then we'll fly to Birmingham to play a team who's obviously on the up and up and got a new manager who's done a great job. And, I don't think anybody around this league would argue that Birmingham's one of the most talented teams, especially with the front three, 4 players that they can put out there. So big week, big second half of the season, like you mentioned, trying to compete for trophies and push and compete. But right now we just take it one day at a time, and we got Birmingham on Wednesday night, which will be full go for.
Yeah. And Ben, you talk about this short prep time to get ready to jump on plane, go to Birmingham, then get back, play again on Sunday. Played in Jägermeister Cup over the weekend. And so this is something I think Europeans don't entirely understand, and the Club World Cup is illuminated. This is tough. It's really tough. How do you go about trying to get, with an international break going on, you lose a guy like Rubio Rabin, you deal with injuries, and you're starting to get a little bit healthier now. Is this spreadsheets? Are you taking it game by game? Do you go tactically, we think we need this against Birmingham more so than we need it Sunday, and we're going to navigate minutes that way? How do you go about a 3-game stretch with such significant implications, especially on these latter 2 games?
Yeah, I mean, I use the term balance, which is we try to balance everything, whether that's the way we operate on and off the field, team meetings, gym sessions, tactically making sure we're balanced in all the phases of the field. So, we have an incredible director of performance, Eric Sally, who for me is top, does a great job. He and I have to find balances of physiologically and mentally and spiritually putting our players in positions. You mentioned travel, like, we met with Cal Jennings this morning, and he played 60 minutes on Saturday, and we're like, hey, where are you at? How's your body? This and this. And, we have a lot of science and data and metrics we use as well. But to me, there's nothing like a firsthand human being report. And Cal just said, look, we got home at 3 a.m. on a long bus ride, and I slept like crap Saturday night and was whacked out on Sunday. And, I'm just not fully feeling myself as of yet. And obviously 2 games in the week now, that we have to change and tweak things, whether that's a workload, whether that's making sure he gets recovered with the resources and facilities that we have. But like you said, we're planned for each and every session. We're planned weeks and weeks out, but then within the daily and the weekly. And then, like you mentioned, 2 games in a week and a half ago, we went to Hartford, flew home late Sunday night, then flew to Miami, got our butts whooped there, turned around 150 degrees against Phoenix, who had a full week of rest and played great. So sometimes the mind is body. The mind is willing and the body's able. Sometimes you got to be really ready to rotate. Like, we had to make a couple changes for sure. We allowed Phoenix to have the ball more. That was our lowest possession in 2 years. So you mentioned it. It's tactics, it's player selection, it's our processes leading up to it. It's hoping and praying at times that guys mentally are like, yeah, let's have it, even though we know they're tired. We do get a little bit of an extra day this week because we don't play North Carolina till Sunday, but we also play them at 5 p.m. and it's going to be the hottest game we've probably ever played in. So we'll be ready. We just take it one day at a time. We use the resources and human beings we have. And to be fair, we've built a deep team that we think we can use as well.
Speaking with Ben Pirmann, head coach of the Charleston Battery, currently sit just 3 points off the Player Shield, number 1 seed overall in the USL Championship, though a game in hand, chasing down Louisville City. They'll take on Birmingham Legion tomorrow night, as we've referenced, 8 o'clock Eastern time. Ben, I want to dig into the coaching side of this a little bit, because you've always been so kind to share with us your journey, your coaching badges, tactic, things like that. I was in Kansas City this weekend for an MLS match, and I was at what they call, and I didn't know this was the actual name of it, the National Development Center. Who knew that it actually had a name? And a coaching course was going on. And it got me to think back to the 23 final when you guys took on Phoenix, and the joke then was how you and Juan Guerra earlier the year had actually shared a coaching course together, and there were presentations and everything. In your time, when you're going through your badges, what's been the biggest takeaway for you over the last couple of seasons, and maybe the individual growth that you've experienced during those sessions?
Yeah, it's interesting because one of the more influential coaching courses I had was with my A license, which was in Kansas City at the Development Center, and I had an instructor named Antal Vergeer, Dutch fellow, who's helped me just change the way I looked at things, the way I process things, and really most importantly was about listening first and enabling players to be themselves, but also challenge me to provide clarity. So, I just had an assistant coach who just returned from Belfast. He just completed his UEFA badge. I have coaches in the current A course. We have instructors on staff. So in my opinion, it's about always improving, about having a growth mindset. These instructors don't tell us and lecture us, oh, you got to play a 3-5-2. You need to press high. You need to sit back. You need to transition. You need to counter press. They just talk to you about if you're going to make a decision or you want something to be accomplished, your process about arriving there. And that's what I think a lot of us coaches have to do. And you constantly have to be studying the game. You constantly have to be challenging yourself. I try to watch as many USL games as possible. Yesterday was a day where there was Club World Cup, there was Gold Cup matches, MLS matches, and I was watching Louisville, North Carolina at 6:00. And even then with two very good coaches, John and Danny, they do a great job tweaking things and how they go about it. So I think if you're observant and you're willing to learn, that's the biggest thing I've taken from these courses. Obviously, some of the relationships you build are tremendous in also kind of the way you shape and have a mindset. So I've enjoyed them. I know my staff's enjoyed them. I know sometimes it's hard. They're very difficult. It takes up a lot of time, but they can be challenging for a good reason as well.
There's the idea within success of coaching that everybody looks at a team that has experienced a positive season. Maybe it's a title-winning season. Maybe it's the Player Shield. Maybe it's in the USL Championship, just getting into the playoffs in general. That sustainability aspect have certainly followed you, not during your time at Memphis as a head coach, as an assistant prior, whether you were at the collegiate ranks with Michigan State, and of course now in your current stint with the Charleston Battery. I'm actually curious to the opposite side of that, because people think, oh, how are they going to be able to do it again? And, they can't make that same mistake. It's not always a mistake. Sometimes it's the opponent. To me, I'm actually thinking about, well, the success that they had, people have seen that. And I have my own personal views on how you guys have evolved, but how do you take a look back at a season that was so good, regardless of year, and try and make sure that you're not repeating the same levels of success and that you're continuing to adapt and really challenge the opposition?
Yeah, look, the first thing I would say is this is a people's business. So, we have I mentioned our chairman, Rob Salvatore, our president, Lee Cohen, and myself. We have a pretty good synergy amongst ourselves. Where, look, I don't just always get what I want. Maybe Lee or Rob views something in a certain, I use this term linearity, making sure everybody's aligned, moving in the right direction. So, we always reflect, we have monthly meetings, we have conversations. And after last year, we sat down and had a conversation about where we suffered and what we needed to improve. And one of the recruitment aspects we looked at was, I'm going to use the term squad size, both from an actual quantity of how many players we carry. Last year, we never got over 17 senior field players, which is crazy. And I didn't want it. And then next thing you know, Mark Segbers and Leland Archer get hurt right before playoffs, and I look like an idiot. So number one is having a appropriate size of the squad. And then when I say size of squad, like we were little pipsqueaks last year. We physically got beaten up by Rhode Island in the cup final or conference final. And even though we played better football and moved the ball and had some chances, we weren't there athletically and physically. So we added some quality in our physical strength as well. So whether that's with speed, whether that's with physical presence, I also don't think you need to be 6'4" and run a 40-yard dash in whatever time. You have to be able to use your body well. Like we signed Nanan Husso, who isn't the biggest and strongest and fastest, but he plays physically strong. He wins his duels. Anybody who watched our game against Phoenix, he literally threw 3 guys to the ground, played a through ball, and we go score a goal. So, that type of concept, I use the term growth mindset about reflection. Where do you suffer? Being predictable about things like, 2 years ago, our guys were 25, 26. Now they're 28. There's a trend there. I really like having players from the age of 23, 24 to 27, 28. Well, now we have players hitting 28, 29. That doesn't mean they're not good. That doesn't mean we don't want them. It means that we need to make sure we're always reflecting on that. And then, like I said, making sure everything's aligned, making sure it fits, whether it's style play, whether it's the values of our club. Last game we played a 17-year-old academy player and a 16-year-old professional who's in the U17 World Cup team. Those are important. We had 3 guys kind of make debuts last game as well. So, making sure we're always pushing on things, making sure we're getting a little bit better. And then making sure that everything fits and aligns with what the club ethos is.
Ben, you started on the people side of that and started to work in the ages numbers. So I'm going to trend that direction here and talk about some of the analytics. The discussions that you and I have had over the years, there's the one side of it where in the modern game, we have access to all this data, right? And you can talk about final third entries, it's possessional, the way that, what are the turnovers like in your defensive third compared to offensive third? There's also the side that's kind of the old school, a little bit more you and I's taste, at least from growing up, that there's the eye test, right? I'm kind of curious, like, how much do you lean on data? And at what point in time do you kind of look at the numbers and then also kind of just say, you know what, like, I understand the numbers, but my trained eye sees something else here and maybe push it aside? Like, describe that balance for you in preparation for a season and a match.
Yeah, the balance is the key. Like I said, everything around what I do, whether it's like work-life balance, right? You got a wife, you got dogs, some people have kids, everything's a balance. So there is no like set, you have to look at data up to this point, or here's the exact things. That to me is the art. That's the science. That's the beauty of probably why certain people are unbelievable at what they do, why certain people are above average or poor, whatever. So we have our key, indicators that we look at. We have our data sets that we really value, and the more you add to them, usually a line of stability hits. There's also certain things where we don't need data. I'll use 2 examples. Number one is in recruitment. We just signed Jeremy Kelly. I'm not going to lie, I didn't look at a single ounce of data for Jeremy Kelly. I just didn't need to. I've coached him before. That's probably the main reason, but I also just know his skill set and his execution and his level of play. The second thing is, I think we lost to Panama. The U.S. did in the Nations League semifinal, if I'm not corrected. And I was watching, the media afterward, and Clint Dempsey, who for me is top 1 or 2 footballers in this country's history, without a doubt. And he said, guys, I don't need to hear about 3+2 or find in the half space. He's like, win a bleeping duel.
Yep.
Dribble by somebody, make a cross, save the ball, head the ball into the goal, slide tackle. Like at some point, it's mano a mano, right? Now, I think it's my job as coaches to put our players in those situations where we can find advantages. Like I'll give Louisville credit. They play a system where they're leading in crosses, they're leading in corners, they're leading in shots. How they arrive there, they don't care. They don't care. They know what they're good at and they go and do it. We play a certain way where, we want to get to the assist zone. We want our playmakers finding, we've been playing with a lot of 2 center forwards this year. Putting our players in situations where they can thrive. We can't defend this year, and that's on me. And that data is as clear as can be that we're going to get better at it. But to me, that's the balance. We identify that we're not good at defending. Coach Ben needs to do a better job at X, Y, and Z. And now we go find the solution process to fix it. So, there's data. You have to use it. If you're not, you're going to fall behind the game. But there's also putting your players in spots to go be themselves, because they're not thinking about, oh, did I enter the 18-yard box at this angle? They're like, give me the ball and I'm going to go make a play. It's our job to put them in spots that make sense.
I mean, it is absolutely amazing, Watts. You knew it was going to come out at some point in time that it didn't matter what they were doing on the attacking side. He was going to talk about that they are, in fact, fallible, and they're only 7th best in the league in defending.
I was literally pulling up. I was about to say, we're here with the 4th leading defensive coach in the Eastern Conference, Ben Pirmann, who've allowed 15 goals in 14 games, but are very frustrated by it.
I guarantee you, by the way, his argument isn't going to be the fact necessarily of how much they've conceded. It's going to be the fact that they've conceded overall. He wants to keep a clean sheet. Is that what this is about? Let's get it out of the way.
You know what's funny? I don't know if I should be putting personal business. A couple weeks ago, I was having a phone conversation or text with Danny Cruz, and we were both trying to outdo each other. Who's worse? They can't defend restarts. We can't defend it. And then at one point, we both just looked at it. I was like, you know what? There's 22 other teams right now who would like to be as bad as we are, so maybe I should stop complaining. But no, in all seriousness, it was just a reflection that, like, we are scoring a lot of goals. We are getting a lot of chances and through balls and shots, but making sure whether we're looking at data or not, and looking at the right data and not having it fit our own story, but really telling us what's going on. So we always reflect. I think I say this all the time. I have the best assistant coaching staff in the country. They're so good, so tremendous. And a lot of that is what we rely upon from the analytics side.
Ben Pirmann is with us, defending his defense or not. Charleston Battery head coach here on USL All Access. Look, you made reference to Jeremy Kelly. You knew him from Memphis, comes in from Crawleytown. Rubio Rabin comes in midway through the season, obviously away with Guatemala, just had that great upset over Canada. Great call, Tyler Terrens, on the winning spot kick there. In terms of bringing them in, what were you missing that they successfully add to your group at this stage? Because you're reaching the midway point. In theory, you knew what you needed to get over the hump or to add something that was lacking or could have been improved.
Yeah, every player signing is unique and different. I have a theory that, you sign your best player after March 1st in USL, which is kind of crazy. It's not the Premier League. It's not MLS, where it's a different type of recruitment process. Just because of the type of transient league we are a little bit. There's so many good players available a month into preseason. With each of those situations, Rubio was a player that Tim Daniels, our assistant coach, had coached in San Diego. He was with the Nash team. He was in MLS preseasons for a month, scoring goals left and right. And it just kind of fell through the cracks. He had opportunities to obviously be in the Mexican top division. He had opportunities to go to Asia and other countries, but for he and his family, it's most important for them to be in America. And we just kind of stayed on it. We knew we were playing a 2 center forward system, and it kind of fit. With Jeremy Kelly, it was one of those things where there had been a recruitment process for a long, long time. I mentioned earlier the fit and the alignment with our ownership, our chairman, our president, myself, the scouting that we do as a staff, it all just fit, and that's a signing that obviously, yes, he's going to help us this season, but he's going to help the Charleston Battery for multiple years to come. And the other thing is like, there is an element of finances, right? When I coached in Memphis my first year, it was like bare bones because it was coming off of COVID, that a lot of teams across a lot of businesses across the world had to deal with that, right? Coming to Charleston, we operate this way and this way. Well, we're now in the 3rd year of our project. So maybe like investing in a player or players or making the squad size bigger makes sense because it's a little bit less risk. You have to plan for the future, not just 2025, not just, if who's the president, who's the coach, who's the players. Like this is high level football where you have to plan for multiple years. And I'm very, very grateful for our ownership, for our chairman, for our president to do such an incredible job with their vision and then enabling our players and our coaches to be the best that we can.
Ben, you gave us a little glimpse on scouting there. I want to pull the curtain back a little bit further if possible. Finances understood, certainly availability, right? Making sure a guy's not under contract. But the success that you have been able to have, again, regardless of stop, we saw you both bring Phil Goodrum out of the Atlanta United organization to Memphis, right? Then there is Graham Smith, that you guys were already in a title race. Like you made it to the final, lost, came up just short to Phoenix. And I can remember sitting there with you and Lee Cohen going, yep, Graham Smith is coming in. And I just thought, like, son of a, getting another really, really good one. And we'll talk about his return in a second. But then you've also got guys that, like, literally you got off the street in Juan David Torres. I mean, luck is one thing for sure. I'm just kind of curious, the formula outside of finances, the formula of which, okay, take us to the end of last season. We are looking at this area of the field, and your first step is usually what to go and find someone?
It's interesting because I just had a very long reflection with kind of Devin Rensing, my assistant coach, who's been a high level scout for MLS teams. He's been around it as a head coach and an assistant. He's the best assistant coach in our entire infrastructure in the USL. And I kind of said, look, here's who we missed out on. And over the last 2 years, we've missed out on 4 or 5 recruits, which isn't a bad number. Like, it sounds like a lot, but it's not that bad. If you're batting 65, 70% in recruitment, you're doing a tremendous job. And we reflected on it about how, to your exact question about how we identify the players or what positions, there needs to be a calmness about it from our end to make sure that you're recruiting the right player, but also the right person. So the first thing for our recruitment model is we talk about high energy, high character. There's so many good players out there. We want to make sure that they're good people as well. In order to kind of know that, we really, really focus in North America. Now, Juan David Torres, you mentioned, he's from Colombia. Last year we had another Colombian, Juan Sebastian Palma. Like, those are the only 2 players that I've, quote, ever imported without seeing in person and knowing, we took risks on them. And then, you relate the finances and stuff to it. And obviously both ended up being very good players and very good people. So for us, there's an element of making sure you don't overcomplicate things. And then you look at, this is where data comes in. You look at trends of where are we successful? Where aren't we successful? Right? Like, we didn't win a lot of duels in X position last year. Well, we need to make sure we go get this. This guy's turning 29 years old. Let's try to go bring in a 23 to 26-year-old to challenge him. Hey, we only had 17 field players last year. Can we get that number to 19 or 21 type thing? So there's a balance of it. But like you mentioned, I genuinely think, and I'm like, not to like put this out there for other teams because it'll hurt my process, but like, I'm going to wait a little bit for next year, right? Like, every year since I've been in USL, from 2019 and 2020 as the assistant, 2021 through now as head coach, every year we have signed, if it's not our best player, it's one of the top 2 or 3, or somebody will be like, oh, that's your best player, but that guy was all league, well into preseason. Whether that's like Nick Marcanic coming in on a trial, whether that's Juan David literally showing up to our training ground saying, hey, I want a week to train with you. And we tell him, no, you got to hit the road. Or whether that's like a lone player, or whether that's a Rubio Rubin coming in. It could be anything, Now, look, you still have to be out in front of it. June 1st hit, and you can start negotiating with players if they're out of contract for next year. And we're on those types of things, but we're also making sure that we have a good balance, players who want to be here and represent the Charleston Battery, but also players, like we said, that fit that high energy, high character model.
It is amazing to me that so dramatically, in terms of scouting, player retention, how much the league has advanced in that conversation over the years.
Yeah.
The idea that, hey, some of the best work is still yet to come, even though most of it is done prior to the end of the year, that you're thinking, hey, that trump card is probably going to be something a little bit later in the process, right? Incredible.
Crazy. Well,
yeah.
I remember 2019, like the lists would come out and you're like, we want this guy, and it was like madness.
Overwhelming. Yeah.
You're just looking at this sheet of paper where it's like 90% of the league are free agents. And I remember we were sat in meetings that year in Orlando where, the director of John Hackworth was there, the director of Stoke City, there's a couple other people. And they said, look, change your mindset. Your players are your assets. Whereas at the time, it was like our players are our number one expense. And you look at it, it's like, well, if you realize you're probably going to spend X amount of thousands or millions of dollars on players, now let's go protect them. Now let's have them here. In the long run, you actually end up saving money. And just like any business in the world, if you can retain your players and you can keep cohesion, it's easier to, like, look at Loudoun this year. They kept 91% of a team that didn't make the playoffs, and now they're in third place. Why? Because they kept him and they didn't have to restart over.
Well said. Last two for me on mine. I'm kind of curious. I did this unnecessary deep dive. I don't know if it was last week or 2 weeks ago.
No such thing is unnecessary.
Yeah, okay. So perfect. And I know I'm well aware that neither you nor Danny nor anybody pays attention because the late night texts never show up when I wake up in the morning and seeing that you've in fact heard the show and said something to me. That being said, we talked about the title race this year. And I said that I always hate when I'm watching, whether it's the pundits on Bundesliga, if it's NBC talking about the Premier League race, right? And whoever's at the top, always Man City, Liverpool historically. And they are like, oh, those games are foredone. The only two games that matter are this. And I basically narrowed down what was a 5 or 6 game stretch for yourselves, for Louisville, and I threw New Mexico United in because of relativity due to points, and also they're leading the Western Conference. And I made the argument that the game that you guys are going to play in August, because of who you play in the meantime, could decide the title race. While I'm not asking you if that's exactly the case, I'm curious in this stretch right now. There's 16 games to go for you guys. It's basically half the season, right?
Right.
Half the season left because it's only 30 games this year. Did you reassess and go, okay, here's where we're at. These are the games of what we have, and here's how we are going to attack it? Or are you more of the mindset of, I can only control what is the next 90 minutes and then readjust, sort of to your point earlier to Mike about the congestion that is the next 7 days for you guys in matches?
Yeah, I think when it comes to the key games and is this game going to decide something or not, that stuff will get here when it gets here. We do break up the season into, like I call it, like there's a honeymoon phase, which everybody's happy until the first slide tackle comes in or coach benches somebody or something like that, right? There's the beginning of the season where you're still forming who you are, filling out rosters, identifying players. And then there's like a trending phase where you're like, okay, these trends are taking over. We just hit a phase of the season, like I call it, like the summer gauntlet, right? We go 3 matches in 8 days, cup game, 3 matches in 9 days, right? We're going to have our mental health break here in 26 days, but who's counting? So we're hitting this portion of this phase of the tough games, but we don't look at it like, oh, we need to do this or pick up this many points or do this. To me, all that matters is Wednesday against Birmingham, because if you don't win,
it doesn't matter. Yeah.
And nothing else is going to matter. And then, by the way, on Wednesday night at 9:06 p.m. Central Time, all that's going to matter is North Carolina. And then after that, we have a week till we play New Mexico. And then after that, it's Miami. And that's how we operate. Yes, we do have plans, physiological and tactical, periodization models, trending models that you want to always improve. But look, for me, there's a reason you play 30 matches. There's a reason, there's a bulk of work you put into it. We just try to get out onto it, in front of it, control what we can influence, work our socks off, train our socks off, and then hopefully on the weekend, or in this case, Wednesday night, that the players can just go out, be themselves, and compete for all 3 points.
Well, I think the idea of newly minted, and obviously there's a couple of months behind that now, head coach of Pamo Dukan, Phoenix Rising, he's got some interesting fashion choices. But I went down the table again just to make sure I wasn't overstepping my boundaries here. You've got to be the king when it comes to kicks on the sideline. What are we working with these days? Anything new in the arsenal? And how big exactly is the shoe closet?
It's gotten bigger since I've moved to Charleston. So
is the budget.
Yeah. You said it. Look, I like my sneakers. I like my Jordans. I like my Air Force Ones. Throw on a pair of jeans and a t-shirt or polo, and it kind of brings it all together. So I try to have some ones that are black and yellow, try to have some neutrals. If my wife and some of my buddies that you guys have met have given me the approval, then I'll stick with those. If not, sometimes you just got to take risks. It's like going out and high pressing and leaving the space behind. You just got to take some risks out there.
Are you superstitious with pairs that you've lost in?
I'm not, but I wore a pair of shoes against Greenville, and then the next time I wore them was this weekend against Tormenta, and I'm like, man, those might be at least when we don't play any more League One teams this season, so I'm like, yeah, maybe just not against League One teams because we're the worst League One team in the world.
Well, I'm glad to see you defend your shoe game better than your team defends.
Yeah.
Your words, not mine.
Yeah,
you started this. This isn't about me. This is about you.
No, you're on it.
Ben, appreciate it. Wishing you all the best on Wednesday. On Sunday, we can't wait to have the games. And I hope we've got a great title race in store. I'm sure you guys will have a lot to say on the subject.
Thanks for having me.
That's Ben Pirmann. Miss any part of the show, it's available tomorrow on the USL YouTube page or on the SiriusXM app. We're back taking a look at all three games on national TV when we return here on USL All Access.
You're listening to USL All Access on SiriusXM FC. Here are your hosts, Mike Watts and Devon Kerr.
We're back on USL All Access. Miss any part of the show, available on the SiriusXM app or the USL YouTube page tomorrow. We've got three games on national television, all on CBS Sports Network this coming week. So Devin and I are going to walk you through what's ahead. Birmingham Charleston is tomorrow. CBS SN Wednesday. It is 8 p.m. Eastern. It's in Birmingham. Dev, thoughts?
Yeah, this is a big one for Birmingham Legion. To me, it comes down to two things. Number one, I mentioned earlier, the combination's lacking a little bit for Birmingham Legion on the front line. Just have to be more clinical in front of the goal. The numbers say they're creating. I would also say there's a human error, factor, I should say, to this, of just the want to actually go get a result. Ben Pirmann talked about how sometimes it's not tactics. Clint Dempsey Deuce, that it's a desire to go and get a result. Hard to argue that you need to chase down anyone more important right now in the Eastern Conference than the Battery, and what a boost that would provide you if you're able to slay the Dragon.
All right, on Friday, go watch your Independence Day fireworks, then come home. We'll be there on CBS Sports Network. Colorado Springs, Louisville City. Let's call it the Super Cup, right? It is the Shield winner against the championship winner from a year ago. One side has held up their end of the bargain this year.
I actually don't mind what Colorado Springs has done with the idea of, what I call the false nine. They've tweaked it a little bit. Levante Johnson is getting healthy. I wonder in this game, their willingness to challenge the central locations. I get a little bit fearful of the way that they've gone about it. They got to make sure they balance the width as well, Mike, because I don't think it's any stretch of the truth by the fact that Louisville is the best team when it comes to transitional moments on the attacking side of the ball in the league.
I'm also going to say they need to make a tiny trophy. It doesn't need to be a big one, but we need a Super Cup tiny trophy. All right, Charleston, North Carolina, CBS Sports Network, Sunday, 5 p.m. Eastern. There's a little Southern flair to this one. I enjoy this rivalry quite a bit.
North Carolina and another chance to make some noise. They've done well against the quote-unquote big boys, if you will, top four type teams that are perennially involved in the playoffs, making sure they're vertical, taking advantage that is a space-dominant team in the Charleston Battery, and getting in behind quickly, but also resetting your defensive lines. If you push, you got to make sure you follow. Charleston want to break you down with a ton of passes. And my question for Charleston is what Ben Pirmann was talking about, Mike. Is this going to be about the true challenge of their depth and them breaking down? They're about to play 9 games in 28 days in all competitions. I don't think they're going to be tested any further than what is right now. Friendly reminder, the back end of that 9 games in 28 days, you got Lou City 10 days after.
All right, Dev, did you learn anything in this show?
Not really. Not much. That I love Ben Pirmann, that I'd like to play for him, that you look great in what is the color?
Texas Topaz Blue, you animal.
That's probably the biggest learning curve of the night.
Okay, I would say finding out that Ben Pirmann's shoe closet actually grew 3 sizes that move, going to Charleston. All right, for Devin, Emmett, Mike, thanks for listening this Tuesday night. We'll see you again next week. So long.
This is USL All Access. If you missed any portion of the program, listen back anytime on the SXM app.